The signal came on a quiet Tuesday morning, piercing through the usual cosmic background noise that SETI researchers had grown accustomed to hearing. Dr. Sarah Chen sat bolt upright in her chair at the Arecibo Observatory, her coffee forgotten as she stared at the readings before her. The signal was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, a clear, structured message that couldn't possibly be natural in origin. Within hours, observatories worldwide confirmed what she'd discovered. Humanity wasn't alone, and their first contact wasn't a peaceful greeting. It was a desperate plea for help. The message came from a coalition called the Astral Alliance, a union of spacefaring civilizations fighting against the ruthless Voidborn Empire. The Voidborn, a species that had evolved in the darkness between stars, were systematically conquering every inhabited world they encountered, harvesting resources and enslaving populations with terrifying efficiency. Admiral James Rodriguez stood before the United Earth Council, his weathered face grave as he presented the holographic message from the Alliance. The alien ambassador, a being of crystalline structure who called herself Wintersong, spoke with unmistakable urgency. "Your world stands at a crossroads." Her translated voice echoed through the council chambers. "The Voidborn consume all in their path. Already, they have detected your civilization's electromagnetic emissions. You can choose to stand alone when they come, or join us in our fight for survival." The council chamber erupted in heated debate. Earth had achieved unity through decades of hardship, developing advanced space travel and defense systems, but they had never faced an interstellar threat. Some argued for isolation, believing Earth's defenses sufficient. Others pushed for immediate alliance. The decision was made for them 3 days later when a Voidborn scout ship appeared at the edge of the solar system. It was a massive vessel, its hull seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it, bristling with weapons humanity had never seen before. Earth's defensive fleet moved to intercept, led by Admiral Rodriguez aboard the UVS Harbinger. The battle that followed would forever change humanity's understanding of warfare. The Voidborn ship was powerful, but Earth's fleet was numerous, and more importantly, unpredictable. While alien weapons tore through space with devastating precision, human pilots flew with a controlled chaos that the Voidborn's targeting systems struggled to track. "Break formation," Rodriguez ordered as another destroyer exploded. Pattern Delta 7. The human ships scattered like startled fish, each following randomized vectors while maintaining their coordinated attack. It was a tactic developed for fighting in Earth's asteroid belts, and it proved devastatingly effective against the Voidborn's methodical combat protocols. The scout ship eventually retreated, but not before transmitting its data back to the Empire. Earth had revealed itself as a threat, and there would be no possibility of neutrality now. In the aftermath, Dr. Chen worked tirelessly with her team to establish better communication with the Alliance. The crystalline beings, the Luminary, shared their advanced technology freely, desperate for any advantage against their common enemy. But it was humanity's tactical innovations that truly caught their attention. "Your species fights differently," Wintersong observed, her crystalline form shimming with interest as she watched recordings of the battle. "The Voidborn calculate every move with perfect efficiency, but you introduce chaos into order. This is something they cannot easily counter." Admiral Rodriguez stood before the council again, this time with Wintersong at his side. "The Voidborn will return," he stated firmly. "Not with one ship, but with a fleet. We can wait here and face them alone, or we can join the Alliance, take the fight to them, and help save not just Earth, but countless other worlds." The vote was unanimous. Within weeks, Earth's shipyards were working at maximum capacity, integrating Alliance technology with human ingenuity. The Voidborn had dominated space warfare for centuries through superior technology and predictable, overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that embraced uncertainty as a tactical advantage. As the first joint human alliance fleet prepared to depart, Dr. Chen found herself assigned as Chief Communications Officer aboard the flagship. Her understanding of alien languages and cultures would be crucial for coordinating with their new allies. Admiral Rodriguez would command the fleet, his experience in the scout ship battle proving invaluable. The ships lifted off from Earth's orbital dockyards, a mix of sleek Alliance vessels and more robust human designs. As they prepared to jump to their first target, Rodriguez addressed the combined fleet. "Today, we bring something new to this war. The Voidborn think they understand warfare because they've reduced it to mathematics. But we know better. We know that victory often lies in the beautiful chaos of innovation, in the unpredictable spirit of those fighting for their homes and their freedom. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity doesn't just survive. We rise to any challenge, we adapt, and we prevail." As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, Dr. Chen couldn't help but smile. Humanity had dreamed of reaching the stars for centuries, imagining all sorts of first contacts. No one had expected their debut on the galactic stage would be as warriors, but if that's what was needed to protect Earth and their new allies, then that's what they would become. The Voidborn were about to learn that they had awakened something they couldn't predict or control. Humanity was joining the war, and the galaxy would never be the same. The combined fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Centauri sector, their arrival masked by a massive radiation cloud. Through the flagship's view screen, Dr. Chen watched the swirling colors of the nebula, a stark contrast to the pitch-black Voidborn vessels lurking beyond. This sector had been a major Alliance trading hub before the Voidborn seized control, and now it would become the testing ground for humanity's first major offensive. Admiral Rodriguez stood at the command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing fleet positions. Beside him, Wintersong's crystalline form pulsed with nervous energy. The Alliance had never attempted such an aggressive assault on a Voidborn stronghold before. "Your strategy is unconventional," Wintersong observed, her tone mixing concern with curiosity. "The Voidborn have superior numbers and firepower. Traditional logic suggests we should retreat." Rodriguez smiled. "Traditional logic is exactly what they expect. That's why we're going to win." He turned to his crew. "Begin Operation Starcross. All ships, execute Pattern Thunderstorm." The human vessels surged forward, but not in the tight formations the Voidborn were used to countering. Instead, they scattered in seemingly random directions, their drives leaving chaotic energy trails in their wake. Alliance ships, guided by human tactical advisors, followed suit, breaking centuries of ingrained military doctrine. The Voidborn response was immediate and predictable. Their black ships moved to intercept, their weapon systems targeting the largest concentrations of enemy vessels. But there were no concentrations to target. The human-led fleet had dissolved into 1,000 individual threats. Dr. Chen coordinated communications between the scattered ships, her linguistics training proving crucial as she rapidly translated between human and alien crews. "Admiral, the Voidborn are transmitting encrypted commands. They're trying to reorganize their defense grid." "Perfect," Rodriguez replied. "They're falling for it. Execute Phase 2. The scattered Allied ships suddenly changed course, their apparently random movements revealing themselves as carefully choreographed chaos. Smaller vessels slipped through gaps in the Voidborn defense network, while larger ships drew fire. Human pilots, trained in asteroid field maneuvers, danced between enemy vessels with impossible precision. "Impossible," Wintersong whispered, watching as human ships deliberately flew into what should have been fatal crossfires, only to emerge unscathed. "Their targeting systems should not miss at this range." "They're not missing," Rodriguez explained. "Their targeting systems are perfect. That's their weakness. They predict where we should be based on standard combat algorithms. We're just not where they expect us to be." The battle intensified as human ships closed to point-blank range with Voidborn vessels. Traditional space combat doctrine held that such close engagements were suicide, but humanity had learned different lessons in their own solar system. Their ships spun and weaved, using the massive Voidborn vessels as shields against their own allies' fire. Dr. Chen's console lit up with incoming transmissions. "Admiral, we're detecting confusion in their communications. Their command structure is breaking down. They don't know how to respond to our tactics." The Voidborn fleet began to fragment, their perfectly coordinated defense grid falling apart as human ships appeared in impossible positions, striking from unexpected angles. Alliance vessels, emboldened by human success, began mimicking their tactics, adding to the chaos. "Now for the killing blow," Rodriguez announced. "All ships, execute maneuver Kraken." The scattered Allied fleet suddenly converged, but not in a traditional attack formation. They moved like a living thing, a writhing mass of vessels that seemed to flow around Voidborn weapons fire. As the enemy frantically adjusted their targeting algorithms, human gunners struck with devastating accuracy. Wintersong's crystalline form blazed with excitement as Voidborn ships began to fall. They cannot adapt quickly enough. Their perfect calculations have become their prison. The battle reached its climax as the Allied fleet reached the sector's central space station. Rather than bombard it from a distance, human boarding teams launched from impossibly close range, their small craft exploiting blind spots in the station's defense grid that only imperfect human intuition could have spotted. Dr. Chen monitored the boarding team's progress, translating between human Marines and Alliance warriors as they fought through the station's corridors. The Voidborn, so dominant in space combat, found themselves equally outmatched in close-quarters battle. Human unpredictability and adaptability proved just as devastating on a personal scale. Hours later, as the Allied fleet secured their victory, Rodriguez and Wintersong stood in the captured station's command center. The holographic displays showed the remnants of the Voidborn fleet retreating into deep space, their perfect formations shattered. "This victory will echo across the galaxy," Wintersong declared. "For the first time, the Voidborn have not just been defeated, they have been outfought. You have shown us a new way to wage war." Rodriguez shook his head. "We've shown them that war isn't just about calculations and perfect execution. It's about innovation, adaptation, and the courage to try the impossible." As the Allied fleet began securing the sector, Dr. Chen received transmissions from dozens of Alliance worlds. Word of their victory was spreading, and with it, hope. The Voidborn's aura of invincibility had been shattered, not by superior technology or numbers, but by humanity's unique approach to warfare. Operation Starcross had succeeded beyond their highest expectations, but Rodriguez knew this was just the beginning. The Voidborn would adapt, would try to counter human tactics. But that was the beauty of humanity's strength. They would simply innovate again, finding new ways to turn the enemy's strengths against them. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships or their guns, but their endless capacity to evolve and adapt. The war was far from over, but its nature had fundamentally changed. The age of predictable, calculated warfare was ending, replaced by something the Voidborn feared far more: the beautiful chaos of human creativity. 3 months after Operation Starcross, the captured Voidborn station had transformed into a hub of innovation. Dr. Chen walked through its corridors, now bustling with human engineers working alongside Alliance scientists. The station's dark walls now pulsed with the crystalline technology of the Luminary, merged with human-designed interfaces in ways neither species had imagined possible. She entered the central laboratory where her latest project was taking shape. A holographic display showed a swarm of small, autonomous drones, a human concept that had captured the Alliance's imagination. The Luminary's crystalline technology allowed them to be virtually invisible to Voidborn sensors, while human-designed AI made them unpredictable yet coordinated. "The latest test results are promising," Admiral Rodriguez said, joining her at the display. He looked tired but satisfied. The past months had been intense, with the Voidborn launching increasingly desperate attacks to regain their lost territory. Each time, they found themselves facing new hybrid tactics and technologies they couldn't predict. Wintersong materialized beside them, her crystalline form now incorporating strips of human-manufactured quantum circuitry. "The Voidborn have begun adapting to our previous tactics," she announced. "Their ships now employ variable targeting algorithms based on our battle data." Rodriguez smiled. "Then it's time to change the game again. Show them the new strike team footage." The holographic display shifted to a recording from a recent skirmish. A small group of human ships, enhanced with luminary stealth technology, appeared in the middle of a Voidborn supply convoy. Instead of engaging in direct combat, they executed precise hits on key systems before vanishing into the void. The Voidborn escort ships fired at empty space, their perfect calculations useless against an enemy that refused to be there. "Guerrilla warfare in space," Dr. Chen mused. 6 months ago, the Alliance would have considered this dishonorable. Now they're asking us to train their crews in these tactics. The station shuddered as another wave of hybrid drones launched from its bays. These weren't meant for direct combat. They would infiltrate Voidborn-controlled systems, gathering intelligence and sowing confusion. Human unpredictability combined with Alliance technology created something entirely new, a form of warfare that targeted the enemy's greatest weakness, their reliance on perfect information and predictable responses. "We've received word from the front lines," Wintersong announced, her form flickering with excitement. "The Voidborn are pulling back from 3 major systems. Their command structure appears to be fracturing. They cannot maintain their perfect coordination when every engagement brings new surprises." Rodriguez studied the strategic display, where Voidborn territory was steadily shrinking. They're learning that perfection is a weakness. In trying to account for every possibility, they've made themselves vulnerable to the unexpected. The station's alert system suddenly blared. A massive Voidborn fleet had emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the sector. But unlike their previous attacks, their formation was different, looser, less predictable. They were trying to adapt. "They're learning," Dr. Chen observed, watching the enemy fleets approach. "But that's the difference between us. They can only learn to copy what they've seen. We create what hasn't been seen before." Rodriguez activated the station's command systems. "All ships prepare for Protocol Hydra." It was their newest strategy, developed by combining Alliance energy manipulation with human swarm tactics. The Allied fleet began to move, but not as individual ships. Energy fields linked them together, creating what appeared to be a single massive organism that flowed through space like water. The Voidborn fleet hesitated, their sensors unable to distinguish individual targets within the energy field. As they adjusted their tactics, human pilots were already executing the next phase. The energy field suddenly fragmented, each piece becoming a weapon that struck from impossible angles. Dr. Chen coordinated communications between the linked ships, her translator algorithms working overtime to keep the combined fleet synchronized. The battle that unfolded was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The Allied ships moved with both precise coordination and chaotic unpredictability, a combination that the Voidborn couldn't counter. "Their flagship is changing course," Wintersong reported. "They're retreating. Not just tactical withdrawal, full retreat." The Voidborn fleet vanished into hyperspace, leaving behind a battlefield strewn with their destroyed ships. But this victory felt different from Operation Starcross. This wasn't just about superior tactics or technology. This was about evolution. "The war has changed," Rodriguez said quietly. "They can't win with just overwhelming force anymore. Every time they adapt to our tactics, we're already developing new ones." Wintersong's form pulsed with agreement. The Alliance fought this war for centuries, locked in a stalemate of technological advancement. Humanity showed us that victory doesn't come from having the strongest weapons or the most perfect strategies. It comes from the ability to constantly evolve, to embrace chaos as a tactical advantage. Dr. Chen watched as salvage teams began recovering Voidborn technology from the battlefield. Even their enemies' defeats served to fuel further innovation. Each piece of recovered tech would be studied, adapted, and transformed into something new through the lens of human creativity. The station's long-range sensors detected more void-borne fleets retreating from Allied space. The enemy was regrouping, probably developing new tactics and technologies. But for the first time since the war began, they were the ones reacting, struggling to keep up with an enemy they couldn't predict. "We've reached the turning point," Rodriguez announced to the assembled command staff. "Not because we're stronger or more advanced, but because we've changed the nature of warfare itself." The Voidborn built their empire on the idea that perfect calculation leads to perfect victory. "We've shown the galaxy that true strength lies in adaptation, innovation, and the courage to embrace uncertainty." As the Allied fleet secured their latest victory, Dr. Chen couldn't help but feel pride in humanity's contribution to the war. They hadn't just brought new tactics or technology. They'd brought a new way of thinking that was transforming both their allies and their enemies. The Voidborn would return, stronger and more adaptable than before, but that only meant humanity would need to innovate again. The turning point wasn't just in the war's momentum. It was in how the war itself was fought. And that was a change the Voidborn could never fully counter, because it meant accepting the one thing their perfect society couldn't handle: the beautiful unpredictability of chaos. The great hall of the captured station hummed with dozens of different languages as representatives from across the Alliance gathered for the first Unified Strategy Summit. Dr. Chen watched from her position near the central platform as Admiral Rodriguez exchanged traditional greetings with delegates from 20 different species. The war had brought them together, but it was humanity's influence that had transformed their alliance from necessity into true cooperation. Wintersong stood beside Chen, her crystalline form now permanently modified with human-designed quantum matrices. "Before your people joined us," she said softly, "each species fought their own way, shared technology reluctantly, kept their secrets. Now look at us." Indeed, the scene before them would have been unimaginable a year ago. The Serpentine Nexari, master strategists who had always worked alone, were deep in discussion with human tactical officers. The ethereal Sith, whose psychic technologies had been their closely guarded advantage, were teaching their techniques to mixed crews of humans and luminary. "The Voidborn expected us to remain divided," Rodriguez said as he joined them. "Their perfect calculations never accounted for true unity." He gestured to a holographic display showing their recent victories. "Every time we combine our strengths in new ways, they're forced to completely recalculate their approach." The latest battle recordings played above the assembly. A Nexari dreadnought, its hull newly fitted with human-designed chaotic drive systems, phased in and out of reality using psi technology. Its crew, a mixture of 3 species working in perfect harmony, executed maneuvers that would have been impossible for any single race. "Admiral," a young lieutenant called out, rushing through the crowd. "Long-range sensors have detected multiple Voidborn fleets converging on the Helios sector. They're using new formations we haven't seen before." The assembly fell silent. The Helios sector was home to several Alliance refugee worlds, populated by species who had fled Voidborn conquest. Its defense had always been a purely military concern, but now Rodriguez saw an opportunity. "We're not just going to defend Helios," he announced to the gathered delegates. "We're going to show the Voidborn what true unity means." He turned to Dr. Chen. "Contact Earth. It's time to implement Protocol Sanctuary." Within hours, the Allied fleet was on the move, but this wasn't just a military response. Civilian ships from Earth joined the convoy, carrying not weapons but humanitarian supplies and cultural exchange teams. As they approached Helios, the Voidborn fleet detected not just warships but a massive migration of peoples and resources. "They're adjusting their attack vectors," Wintersong reported, monitoring the enemy's movements. "Their tactical computers are trying to account for civilian presence in a military operation. They cannot compute our intent." The battle began conventionally enough. Voidborn ships launched their precisely calculated attacks, targeting what they perceived as military threats. But the Allied response defied all strategic logic. Civilian ships, protected by overlapping shields of multiple alien designs, began evacuating refugees while the battle raged. Combat vessels covered their retreat using tactics that switched between different species' combat doctrines mid-fight. Dr. Chen coordinated the massive operation from the flagship's command center, her linguistic skills proving crucial as she helped multiple species work together in real time. "The Voidborn are broadcasting on all frequencies," she reported. "They're demanding to know how we're maintaining formation cohesion without central control." Rodriguez smiled. "Tell them it's called trust." The Allied fleet demonstrated this trust as ships of different species protected each other, compensating for each other's weaknesses without being ordered to. Human vessels provided chaotic cover fire, while luminary ships used their crystalline technology to redirect enemy weapons. Nexary dreadnoughts opened temporal corridors that Sci-Fi vessels filled with psychic interference. The Voidborn fleet's perfect formations began to break down as they encountered not just unpredictable tactics, but unpredictable cooperation. Their targeting computers couldn't adjust fast enough to account for ships combining their technologies in ways that changed from moment to moment. "They're retreating," Winter Song announced, her form pulsing with joy. "The Helios sector is secure." But this victory was different from previous ones. As the Voidborn fled, they left behind not just a defeated fleet but a transformed sector. The refugee worlds of Helios became something new, true melting pots of different species working together. Human agricultural techniques merged with alien terraform technology to create sustainable colonies. Luminary crystals powered Earth-designed defense systems. Children of different species played together, learning each other's languages and customs. This is what they truly fear, Dr. Chen realized, watching the integration of cultures through the station's observation deck. Not our weapons or tactics, but our ability to grow stronger through unity. Rodriguez nodded. The Voidborn built their empire on the idea that perfect uniformity leads to perfect order. "We're showing the galaxy a different path. Strength through diversity, victory through cooperation." The impact of this new approach spread rapidly through Allied space. Mixed species crews became the norm rather than the exception. Cultural exchange programs led to technological breakthroughs as different species learned to see problems through each other's eyes. The war evolved into not just a fight for survival, but a fight for a new way of life. Winter Song's crystalline form shimmered with emotion as she accessed reports from across Allied space. "The Voidborn are losing more than battles now. Worlds under their control are beginning to resist, inspired by our example. They see that there is strength in unity, power in diversity." As the Allied fleet prepared for their next operation, Dr. Chen felt a profound sense of pride. Humanity hadn't just brought new tactics to the war. They'd brought hope, showing the galaxy that different species could do more than just fight alongside each other. They could learn from each other, grow together, and create something greater than the sum of their parts. The Voidborn's perfect empire was crumbling not before superior firepower, but before an idea they couldn't compute. That true strength comes not from enforced perfection, but from the beautiful chaos of cooperation between different peoples, each bringing their own unique strengths to create something unprecedented and unstoppable. The void between stars had never felt darker as the combined Allied fleet approached the heart of Voidborn space. Dr. Chen stood at her station on the flagship's bridge, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace give way to an absolute darkness that seemed to devour light itself. They had finally found it, the Voidborn homeworld, hidden in a region of space where no natural light had ever penetrated. Admiral Rodriguez studied the tactical displays, his face illuminated by the glow of 1,000 Allied ships' signal beacons. The fleet they'd assembled represented every species in the Alliance, their vessels modified with hybrid technologies, born from years of cooperation and innovation. This would be their final push. Victory here would end the war. "The Voidborn have gathered their remaining forces," Winter Song reported, her crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. "Our sensors detect defensive installations unlike anything we've encountered before. They've adapted every strategy we've used against them." Rodriguez nodded grimly. "Of course they have. That's why we're not going to use any of our previous tactics. He turned to address the assembled command staff. Today, we show them something completely new. The Allied fleet moved forward, but not in any formation the Voidborn could recognize. Using a combination of human-designed quantum fields and luminary crystal technology, entire battle groups began to phase in and out of normal space. Necessary temporal drives created bubbles of altered time, while Psi's psychic arrays projected false sensor readings in all directions. They're launching their counterattack, Dr. Chen announced, monitoring enemy communications. But their commands, they're chaotic. Their perfect coordination is breaking down. The space around the Voidborn homeworld erupted into the largest battle the galaxy had ever witnessed. But this wasn't just a clash of weapons and ships. It was a confrontation between two fundamentally different philosophies. The Voidborn's perfect, calculated order faced off against the controlled chaos of unity and adaptation. The first phase of the battle went according to plan. Allied ships, moving in patterns that defied prediction, breached the outer defense lines. Human-designed AI systems worked in concert with alien technologies to create combat algorithms that evolved mid-battle. Every time the Voidborn adjusted their defenses, they found themselves facing entirely new tactics. But the Voidborn had prepared for this final battle. As the Allied fleet pressed their advantage, massive structures emerged from the darkness of their homeworld. These were their ultimate weapons, technologies they'd held in reserve, waiting for this moment. Energy readings are off the scale, Wintersong mourned. They're channeling power from their entire civilization. They mean to end this in one strike. Rodriguez's expression hardened as he saw the massive energy buildup. The Voidborn were preparing to unleash a weapon that could tear apart space itself. Victory was within reach, but the cost would be devastating. All ships, execute Protocol Omega, he ordered, his voice steady despite the weight of his command. This was the plan they'd hoped they wouldn't need. A desperate gambit born from the combined knowledge of every allied species. Dr. Chen felt tears in her eyes as she transmitted the orders. Protocol Omega would require the sacrifice of hundreds of ships and their crews, using their combined drive systems to create a quantum barrier around the Voidborn weapon. Human volunteers had been the first to step forward for this mission, followed by representatives from every allied species. The barrier teams are in position, she reported, her voice thick with emotion. They're ready. The Voidborn weapon activated, its energy beam reaching out to unmake reality itself. But it met the quantum barrier created by the sacrificial fleet. The barrier didn't try to block the weapon's power. Instead, it redirected it, using principles discovered through the combined research of human and alien scientists. The weapon's energy, twisted back upon itself, began to tear apart the very space around the Voidborn homeworld. The sacrifice of the barrier fleet had turned the enemy's perfect weapon into an instrument of their own destruction. The weapon is collapsing, Wintersong announced. The Voidborn, they're sending out a surrender signal. The battle didn't end with a triumphant charge or a decisive strike, but with a moment of profound silence as the remaining Voidborn ships powered down their weapons. Their perfect society, faced with the ultimate expression of chaos turned to purpose, finally understood the futility of their quest for absolute order. In the aftermath, as Allied ships began rescue operations for the surviving Voidborn, Dr. Chen found herself composing the message that would be sent to every world in the galaxy. It wasn't just an announcement of victory. It was a testament to what different species could achieve together. Today marks not just the end of a war, Rodriguez said in the final broadcast, but the beginning of a new era. The Voidborn sought to impose perfect order on a chaotic universe. We showed them that true strength comes not from eliminating chaos, but from learning to thrive within it. Every species brings its own unique perspective, its own strengths, and together we create something greater than any of us could achieve alone. The victory celebration spread across Allied space, but it was tempered by mourning for those who had sacrificed themselves in the final battle. On 1,000 worlds, beings of different species came together to honor the fallen and to pledge that their sacrifice would not be forgotten. Wintersong, her crystalline form now permanently modified to interface with human technology, stood with Chen and Rodriguez as they watched the first diplomatic ships approach the void-born homeworld. "They ask to learn from us now," she said wonderingly. "They who once sought to teach the galaxy perfection through force now seek to understand the power of unity." Dr. Chen smiled through her tears. "That's humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not our technology or our tactics, but our ability to show that strength comes in many forms, that adaptation is more powerful than perfection, and that unity doesn't mean uniformity." As the Allied fleet began their journey home, they left behind not just a defeated enemy, but a transformed galaxy. The war had proven that the greatest power in the universe wasn't perfect order or overwhelming force, but the ability of different peoples to come together, to learn from each other, and to face any challenge with innovation, adaptation, and unity. The price of victory had been high, but it had purchased something priceless, a future where the strength of diversity would forever triumph over the limitations of perfection.